Well, welcome back. We're glad you're with us. This is episode number 39. It's hard to believe this will be our 39th one. We've titled this one, The Grandchildren Come to Visit. So this is one that we've had some practical experience in. We've had to go back and think about biblical expectations, what to do when they're here as far as discipline, how to make it memorable as opposed to just letting it happen. So maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but we do have some experience. We have 20 grandchildren. At the time we record this video, none more know that we don't know of any more on their way. Their ages are quite extensive. We have our oldest is 13, all the way down to those that are just a few months old. And so we have all kinds of conditions. We have those that live in town, come over for an hour or two. We have those that live out of town, out of state. That come and spend a night with us. We have those that come and spend weeks with us. So we have much experience, and so we wanted to share with you some of that experience. So maybe you can start with what would be the first thing grandparents should be thinking about if grandkids come to visit?
Well, I guess, it's when it's not your own child and you spend, a large amount of time, like on a daily basis with them, they're getting to know you. So I guess it would be to win their hearts, to have a welcoming home. When they come in, you smile and say their name, give them a hug, I just remember growing up, our neighbors, and I remember they had a son that was my age, and they had a daughter that was probably 4 or 5 years younger. And because we always called her the baby, because she was so much younger than us, right? But I just remember when her grandparents would come to their house, they always brought, big Easter baskets and, a lot of stuff. And I'm sure children always love to be given stuff. And I'm not saying you can't. I think you told me that when you go to your grandparents' house, the little candy dish was right there. And it was always full for you. But you don't have to spoil them with stuff. Like all other children, they love time. And so more often than not, if they've been here more than 5 minutes, Nana, would you do a puzzle with me? Or Nana, would you read me a book or play a game or whatever? And I'm not saying I do all the time, because a lot of times when everybody's here, I'm busy in the kitchen, making food. But if they come to spend the night, or if I'm just watching them for the afternoon or something, they come to visit, then yeah, we try to do, it's not all fun and games because Nana has to do work too, but we do try to do some things just as we did with our own children, to make special memories. So I don't know about you. Well, I just said the candy, and I remember you conveyed dress-ups, a big box of dress-ups, that you and your cousins would go do. And we have that kind of stuff in our basement, special toys that they might not have at home. And every now and then, I know this, I'm not trying to be selfish, but every now and then they'll say, Nana, can I take this home? Depending on what it is, often I'll say, no, let's leave that at Nana's house, because then when you come, you can play with it, because I know it becomes very ordinary the day after they take it home, and it no longer is, fun or special. But you remember certain smells. I remember cinnamon apples whenever I go to my grandma's house. And, just different raspberry bushes that we could go pluck off fresh raspberries. Special foods that she may have cooked. I remember playing, like you did, dress up, and she always had a purse and baby doll that I could play with. But I'm almost 60, and some of those images come back to me, just so clearly. And I miss them because, my grandparents obviously are long gone. But we do want to create memories for our children. I think we had the one on making memories. It was episode 6. So if you're interested in that, learning more, feel free to check that one out. But the memories of being loved, of having a welcome place, special foods. I don't know why, but, something easy is the blue box of macaroni and cheese. And a lot of times the grandchildren don't have that at home. So when they come to Nana's house, ooh, can we have macaroni and cheese and hot dogs or something like that? Doesn't take much usually, but uh, sometimes we'll do treasure hunts or fun little activities. Oh, we almost always, when we have our big gathering, we always do a piñata, our birthday bash, and just little things for them to connect Nana and Papa to, things that make your home special.
So when grandparents and when they win their grandchildren's hearts, they have created a really special opportunity. So my grandmothers, going back, right? My grandmothers were caring. They had won my heart. They had incredible power. When they talked, I listened. And so they built up a lot of capital. So I remember one particular event. This is when I was 10 years old. 50 years ago. I still remember it. 50 years ago. I was this young 10-year-old spouting off of something the kids were doing at school, and I was sure I was right, and I was superior to them, and exactly whatever the situation it was, I don't remember. My loving grandmother decided that I needed the greatest blessing. I needed a great blessing. She pulled me aside, and I'm not sure where my parents were at the time, but she rebuked me. She rebuked me for my coarse attitude, for my arrogance, for my pride. And you know what? She was right. And here it was. And I took notice because I knew this woman loves me. She's been so caring. She's been so gracious. And now she's pulling me aside. I took notice. 50 years later, I can remember this. Grandparents, you have incredible power with your kids. So, as is done with parenting, we want grandparents should be thinking about what is the greatest blessing I can give to this child. Maybe a gift, maybe a special event. Take them on a special event that maybe the parents can't do, can't afford. Or it may be a rebuke, right? I know that sounds strange. The other thing we want to try to get across is your first goal is to win their hearts. It's not to get them to obey you because you're large and in charge. Right? You want to encourage them to be obeying their parents. You want to encourage them to be obeying God. This is the commandment, right? This is the fifth commandment. You also have to remember that you as parents had house rules. You had different styles. You had different things that you did. When your children get married, they marry somebody else from another family. They develop their own habits, their own practices, their own styles, right? And so they may do things that you didn't do in your house. So when those grandkids are there, never, never, ever seek to diminish their parents. Speak down about their parents, what their parents are allowed to do. Never do that in their children's eyes, right? Encourage them to obey their parents. Encourage them to obey God. And remember, this is the commandment with a promise, that they may live long in the land, they may live long in this world. In all likelihood, though, when their parents, your children, when they dropped them off at your house, they probably told those kids, if they came and dropped them off, you obey Nana and Papa, you obey Grandma and Grandpa. So that's part of their obedience. So win their heart, give them the most special blessing, and then encourage them to obey their parents. So, dear, what's another way we can win their hearts?
Well, another way we can win them.
Sure. Yeah, put it in context. What do we have to share with them?
Well, obviously our age, our memories, because the days that you and I grew up in were different than the days that they have so much more technology and different lifestyles. So I am chagrined. I did talk with my grandparents before they passed away, but I didn't write it down. So grandparents, if you have a few minutes, you can write a little journal, things that were special about your childhood, things that, you were alive when the first man went to the moon, there's a lot of firsts. I remember, my grandparents, the first automobile they ever saw was, it was quite a thing to them. So you have an opportunity to minister to them. You can encourage them in their godliness, even if they're little 3-year-olds. Sing Jesus Loves Me, sing, a psalm that they might be familiar with. So you can tell them, like I said, stories of your younger years. And it is sometimes hard for them to believe that we were once young. I remember, I was just thinking about this today. My memories, I guess my grandparents were in their 50s when I was born, probably. But, at the time, they just always seemed so old. And so, yeah, I was thinking about that. I have no idea how our grandchildren, I'm sure we probably seem very old and ancient to them. But another thing that children like to hear are stories about their parents when they were children, and some of the memories we have, the things that they used to enjoy doing, or reading some of the same books, playing some of the same games with them. And I think one of the important things that children learn, it's hard for them because I remember when I was little, school went on forever. Summer break would never come. It seemed like it. And then all of a sudden summer break came, or Christmas, or anything that you're looking for. But, but as we get older, we see how time goes faster. So I think something valuable to impart is that, and they can't understand this because they just don't have the maturity and the experience to understand it, but that life does not go on forever here on this earth, So fill their minds with edifying stories, help them to see their part in history. Tell them, and I'm not just, if they bring you a piece of artwork, and you really can find beauty, even if it's, I love the colors that you used. Don't wax and wane and praise them, without true meaning, because they can tell that too. But, when you have opportunity, or somebody, you see one of them help their brother and sister, that was so thoughtful of you to get so-and-so their cup. Thank you for doing that, or helping them, wash their hands. So as you have opportunity to praise them, and set before them godly, expectations. And you mentioned something about everybody's family when one of our children marries someone else that come from a different household, different house rules. But Nana is pretty firm. We've never allowed children to jump on the furniture. So that's Nana's house rules. And my children understand. And, if somebody's jumping on a piece of furniture, they'll say, hey, none of that. They know this grandma's house rule. And so they understand that, which I appreciate too. We want to begin to help open their eyes, to encourage them. And quite honestly, when you're in the throes of child rearing, one just gets tired. So it's really a delight to, as grandparents, we have so many babies around now that I really miss those days sometimes. Like, where did it go? But yes.
So now, if you've told, let's just imagine this 5-year-old, 10-year-old, you've told them stories about their parents when they were 5 or 10 years old. You then tell them about stories when you were their age, when you were 5 or 10, and they're scratching their heads. You were 5, you were 10. You tell them stories that you heard about your parents, your grandparents. And fortunately, my wife comes from a long family of people that were serving Christ. And now the expectations are set. This is how we live faithfully. And now they start to realize, someday I'm going to grow older. Someday I have certain expectations to serve and love God. And now they see their place, and they see God's faithfulness, and they realize, I'm not going to be a child all my life. They start to learn to number their days with time, maybe not at 5 years old, but those stories will overflow. Let me provide a couple words on discipline, right? So when the children come to your house, be careful. Be so careful. A couple notes, right? So if the child is at your house, parents are there, and they're about ready to touch the hot stove, stop them, right? If they're about ready to slug their brother and nobody else is witnessing it, stop them, right? Stop them, intervene. But if the parents are in the house and you're witnessing a fussy attitude, and it's at the table and the parents are right there, you're witnessing this fussy attitude, you're witnessing some kind of disrespectful attitude, right? Do not, grandparents, do not correct that child, your grandchild, in front of their parents. You know what? You had your turn. You had your time. If you let the parents do their job, you don't do it. Now, because that would be to their shame, right? But if that fussiness continues and continues and continues for weeks and months, be praying for them. And if you need to, talk to their parents. Hey, I think little whatever is having a real struggle here. Have you considered, right? Encourage them and encourage the parents. Don't do it in front of them. If the parents do leave you, the child, be sure you understand the parents' expectations, right? Do you want me to use the rod? Do you not want me to use the rod while they're here, right? And so when the parents return, don't brush everything over, right? Let love cover a multitude of sins. Don't keep a long list. But if there's been some serious stuff, say something, right? Say something. Let them know you love their child, you want them back, but let them know. Otherwise, they can't address it. So my wife reminded me of a Christian lady's approach that would take a black marker. And if the child was crossing some boundaries, doing something they weren't supposed to, she would take their hand and put a little check mark on it. So, and she told the parents she was going to do this. So when the parents came, they looked. So,
I think she only actually ever had to do it once.
Yeah.
I mean, she would, if she was there, she would address it. She would say, don't do that, or, you're not allowed to do this or that. And if the child stopped, then life went on. But she said there was only one time when, because she wasn't going to.
That's right. So you knew that the parents had some issues to work through that night with the child. But whatever you do, establish the boundaries with the parents if they're left with you. What they want you to do and what they don't want you to do. And respect it. Respect that, right? So we definitely, when the grandkids come to the house and the parents aren't here, we do not want a free-for-all. Because where there's a free-for-all, there is no blessing. It might be fun. You remember those days and you're in class or in the schoolroom and the teacher shows up and they have no control over that class. Maybe you're in fifth grade, right? The paper airplanes are flying. There's no work being done. There's loud, rambunctious kids running all over. And as a child, you say, this is fun. At the end of the class, at the end of the year, you say it was a waste of time. So we don't want it to be a free-for-all at Grandma and Grandpa's house. We want some order, but we don't need perfection. So one of the things maybe you can address is grandparents. Most grandparents haven't had their own 2-year-old in the house for a while. So how should we be addressing it when the 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds do come?
Well, it is a big change. There's a lot more activity. There's a lot more noise. And one of the things, I'm quite sure my children never feed their children, because one of the first things they come through the door is, Nana, I'm hungry, or, I need a snack. And thankfully we've been blessed. So we try to have, fresh fruit and different snacks on hand. But that is something that I've had to remember and adjust a little bit. And there's times I'm sort of firm, like, no, we're not going to have snacks now because dinner is only 30 minutes away. You can wait, or, like right after dinner. And then it's like, I need a snack. So, but life, one forgets. I forget. I was just reminiscing, I guess earlier in this video that I was like, oh, I miss those days, of having the little baby and watching all the first time things. But at the end of the day, when I've had, 1, 2, 3 or more grandchildren here, it's like, whew, I'm exhausted. It's not for the faint of heart, but just to set your expectations. So a 3-year-old is not going to act like the 12-year-old, and they're going to be a lot more needs. So, you do have to restructure your expectations. And sometimes the children need to be reminded of, don't slam the doors, or, we have a staircase that sort of makes a circle. So when things get really exciting, cousins are here and everything, and they start doing laps, and we say, no, 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 you're going to have to go outside, because it gets pretty crazy. But anyway, yeah. As Kevin mentioned, if you see whether it be whining or, a couple of siblings just really going at each other, again, if the parent is there, then it's not, our place to step in and address it. But if the parent is not there, then, we do if they've been left in our charge. But when you see those things, be praying for them. As grandparents, I think that's one of the highest callings, to pray for our children to have strength and to make wise decisions and to persevere and to have strength through the long nights of sleeplessness sometimes, those really trying times when, a child is going through something and they're determined to put their toe over the line every single time. So it should really help us. My mom in her later days, I know that she just really prayed for her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, was a faithful warrior in that.
So Scripture speaks about the righteous ones, and it says they will see their children's children to the third or fourth generation. And they say this is a blessing. But with each and every blessing, there's a certain amount of work, right? So those apart from Christ, when all those little ones show up, right? If they were apart from Christ, they're not serving Christ, right? That's not a blessing. But parents and grandparents, or especially we're talking about the grandchildren coming. So speaking to grandparents here, remember, it is a blessing. It ultimately is a blessing. Think about this world in the where we find ourselves. So many little ones have been aborted, right? And so we should desire grandchildren. We should know their work. We should also know that it's not all sugar and spice and all things nice, right? All blessings require work from us. So let's be worthy of that work. Let's know as grandparents, right, what do we have on our side? May not have energy anymore, but hopefully we've got the experience of time, the wisdom of Scripture on our side, right? We've seen many things. We've been around that block more than once, right? We remember when we were 10. We remember when our own children were 10. We remember the challenges there. We remember the challenges with puberty, and then with young adulthood, right? Speak to your children. Win their hearts. Have something to tell them. And know, as you win their hearts, they are listening. Maybe they're distracted for the moment, but keep speaking to them. Keep encouraging them in the ways of godliness. Pass on your advice. Pray for them. Pray, as my wife says, pray for them. Why? The devil has made it his target to go after these young ones, right? To go after these young ones. He wants them. He wants to flame them in their passions. He wants to take them hostage. He wants them, and he wants them in a big way. So I'm going to let you close this issue. What closing words do you have for this subject?
Something else that I thought of, we never had any cookie cutter children. We had some that shared certain personalities or traits or even gifts, talents, but each one is individual, and they can be from the exact same gene pool family and everything, and they can be as different as night and day. But I think one of our main possibly responsibilities and opportunities is to encourage our children to continue on in the way, to fight the good fight. Potty training, they'll get it someday. I've never seen them go to college in diapers. So, they'll get it. Just encourage them where you can. Pray for them. And, I think of, when I watch my grandchildren, I have a couple that are very, they're going to be engineers someday or something, just because, you can just see them working out the problems and, of setting up their brick or their block houses, castles, whatever. And you can see others that like to flourish and are a little bit more dramatic, and you imagine them, being, not maybe actors or actresses, but, just the gifts of art, possibly, or music. Bathe them in prayer, as you mentioned, specific prayer if they're going through a certain, children go through stages, and part of it is that's the process of growing up and maturing. So find opportunity to bless them, bless their families. Encourage the children to obey God when they come here. We do our usual routine. A lot of them do that in their own homes, is, pray before we have a meal, sometimes sing a song or a hymn, psalm. And, I'm really excited I know that God is faithful, and I'm thankful that he uses us. And, as you mentioned, to the 1,000th generation. And I'm excited because these little people matter and they are important. So bring your grandchildren in as you're able to. Encourage them in obedience. When you see they've done something, worthy of praise, praise them, and enjoy the journey. So sometimes it can be a challenge. And at the end of the day, sometimes it's like, whew, I'm tired, but it's a good tired.
Right.
And so
and we as grandparents know that time is fleeting, so
it is.
cherish those moments.
Yes. So thank you for joining us on this episode, and may God bless you. We hope that you'll, if you're interested, check out some of our other videos at Christ Church, Owensboro. Have a good...
Yeah, Willing Warriors at Christ Church.
Willing Warriors. Sorry, yes.
ChristchurchOwensboro.com. Thank you very much.